This is Bills Vader, and you're now listening to the Wandering Buffalo podcast with your hosts, Andrew and Justin. May the Bills be with you. Go Bills.
Hello and welcome into another episode of the Wandering Buffalo podcast, a show here on the Built-in Buffalo Network. My name is Andrew Chang, and alongside me is my co-host Justin Goddard. As always, you can find us on most social media and podcasting platforms, and even on YouTube by searching up the Wandering Buffalo podcast. Welcome back. So today we got to talk about some news. No surprise here, the Bills have a new offensive coordinator, and I'm using air quotations here because we all suspected that it was going to be Ken Dorsey, and it turns out it was, so that's great. Bobby Johnson left. We got a new offensive line coach in Joe Brady. Shea Tierney left, and we also brought in Joe Brady as the new quarterbacks coach. So a lot to unpack there, but Justin, did I miss anything?
I don't think you missed anything. Circle back, you said Joe Brady twice there. The new offensive line coach replacing OG Bobby Johnson is Phil Rauscher.
Yeah. Sorry for double down on my mistakes. So, to summarize, those who left, Brian Daboll, Shea Tierney, Bobby Johnson. That's who's left. Coming in is Phil Rauscher, Joe Brady, and I guess who got retained is Ken Dorsey, promoted. Sound right?
Sounds right to me.
Okay, well let's go from old to new stuff, and after that we'll jump into our 13 reasons why to be 13 reasons to be excited for the Bills' upcoming season. So, Ken Dorsey, I use in air quotations here because as Bills fans, we kind of had this feeling like maybe he's going to go to the Giants. I read some reports online that, hiring Brian Daboll was a package deal that Ken Dorsey was supposed to come with him. Now, we ultimately know that this didn't happen, and I'm pretty excited about that because of the following reasons. Continuity is stabilized at one Bills drive. You're not bringing in someone who's not with the times with the Bills. You got someone who's been well juiced up by Josh Allen himself, so that's another thing. And in another way, you kind of saw this coming because last year he got promoted to passing game coordinator, so it seemed like he had the most straightforward track to becoming the offensive line coach. The only obstacle here was allegedly other teams were interested in Ken Dorsey and outside of the Giants. So I guess my biggest fear was, are other teams going to pay Ken Dorsey significantly more money than we are? Is that going to be enough to retain him, the continuity aspect? And it turns out that so far, I don't know what he got paid, but so far it looks like that continuity aspect and working with Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, Cole Beasley, and the rest of the gang seems more appealing than jumping to the Giants with Daniel Jones and company.
Yeah, there's actually a lot of reasons I'm excited for this, and really only one hesitation that I have, and that would be that he hasn't been a play caller at this level, right? Mm-hmm. And I'll kind of touch on that as we get into some of the other moves we've had. But as you mentioned, it was reported there's up to 11 offers out there for Ken Dorsey. And, compensation aside, he decides to stay when there's other options out there. And one of the things that I really like about this is as we see, this Brian Flores story come out saying, it was a bad work environment and Daboll was thinking about leaving anyways. And then it's kind of immediately followed up with, well, Dorsey wants to stay. He had options to go elsewhere.
Right.
And probably pretty similar money, if not the same, that was being offered. So, in kind of the same news cycle as, well, maybe the Bills have a bad work environment, a guy with tons of options decides to stay. So I really liked hearing that. I also think, the continuity piece is important. The fact that he was kind of endorsed by some of the players, already has eyeballs on them, knows what they do well, knows what they like to run, but also the little bit of change that will come with it. Whereas it's not going to be the exact same scheme that Daboll was running, but he has been working with Daboll. So a lot of the pieces, day one of training camp, they're not installing a new playbook for a new coordinator that they've never met. They kind of already have the base work to work with, and then whatever he can add and subtract away. I think just kind of a fresh look at it and, a little bit of a different take on how to coordinate could be a really good thing for Josh in the offense.
Yeah, and I agree completely. I think a breath of fresh air, again, it's not entirely fresh, right? Because we retained Ken Dorsey and really promoted him, but there's a lot to be excited about because change is coming, but we're probably going to see a lot of carryover from the previous plays into this playbook. So another angle, really, while keeping the same stuff. So I'm pretty excited about that. New development of plays. So why not? Why can't this offense be better under Ken Dorsey? And I'm finding hard reasons to come up with it. Honestly, it should. Not trying to pump them up too much, but I can see every reason why this Bills offense could be just as good, if not better. And I'm always a half glass kind of full kind of person, so maybe I'm getting ahead of myself, but who knows? And you mentioned the lawsuit, so I'll kind of put I didn't really want to talk about that too much, but here we are. I kind of find it hard to believe that after how long was Daboll here? Like 3-4 years, something like that.
Yeah.
Out of nowhere, he goes. This is brought up like, oh, he hated his time in Buffalo. It's just like, okay, if he really hated his time in Buffalo, he could have left any of those years. And then, but again, maybe I don't have the facts right. I'm just kind of working with what I have in front of me. And also, there are plenty of people that I work with that I don't like, but I'm able to work with them. And I think that's the important thing, right? You're not going to like everyone. And this is just, you can apply this to every workplace. There are probably multiple people you don't like to work with or you don't like as people, but yet you find a way to work with them in order to achieve your goal, which happens all around America. And, not even America, just like the world in general. So I'm not going to put too much stock into the fact that Brian Daboll really hated his time here because, he had a lot of success and team success is pretty fulfilling, for me at least. So let's move on to the second hiring. So Joe Brady, this really amped up guy coming out of LSU, gets his chance at Carolina to be their offensive coordinator. Things don't really work out after 2 years, not even a year and a half really. Gets the boot. He's on the street, and then he kind of takes a position down because I know he was getting head coaching interviews and offensive coordinator interviews, but he said, no, I want to come back and work as a quarterback's coach with the Buffalo Bills and Josh Allen, which in my head, like, how can you not be excited about this? This is a guy with a lot of upside who people have sought out for higher positions, who looks, right now his NFL career start didn't look too hot, but it's there. Can the Bills really help develop him in the quarterback's room and get his career back on track? So I'm pretty excited about that. What are your thoughts, Justin?
So for me, this is probably the hire I'm most excited about. And I kind of, I kind of touched on it with Ken Dorsey, and the only question I really have is kind of the play calling and the game planning install for the week. And I was kind of concerned of, if we just kind of promoted everybody in the organization up a step, that there wouldn't really be that guy to bounce ideas off of. And seeing Joe Brady come in and, having that offensive coordinator experience, calling the plays and whatnot, to me, it's kind of like, position aside, kind of like when you have a younger quarterback and you bring in, a veteran backup, Ryan Fitzpatrick, Pickham McCown, and it's just kind of that voice in the room that's seen some of the things that you haven't seen yet and can kind of help you and bounce ideas off of you. So I'm very excited for Joe Brady, and I think there's a lot of other things to like too. He was a William and Mary alum like McDermott.
I did not know that.
He did his master's work at Penn State, which checks a box for the Pagulas. So he was kind of. I kind of figured the offensive coordinator was going to be Dorsey's job to either take or leave on the table. But Joe Brady's somebody that I had in mind. Obviously, there's the Carolina connection as well. You know how we like to trade players back and forth and whatnot. So he was somebody that I had in mind for an OC position. So getting him in the building to take a step lower position and kind of be that soundboard for Ken Dorsey, I think that could be quite the marriage.
It's funny that you mentioned the Carolina connection and the pipeline that clearly exists between Buffalo and Carolina. Is before I even looked, I forgot who posted it, but so basically the standard breaking news post that you see on social media: Bills hire so and so. I didn't even look at the face or the name. I just saw Carolina's jacket on it, and I was like, of course. Not like that's a bad thing, but it's just kind of funny to me and at this point. But no, you're right. I think Joe Brady is more than adequate. And like I said, this is a high upside kind of hire. Kind of like what the Bills did in, when they draft people. They pick a lot of people with high upside, with their talents not to be reached yet. For me, this hire is almost in the same category, if not the same category. So I'm pretty excited about it. And then the last news piece that we got to talk about is the offensive line coach. Bobby Johnson left, and it's reported that the Bills did not try to give him another contract, or maybe Bobby Johnson wanted to leave. Regardless, he leaves, goes to the Giants. So he's got to deal with that train wreck. Now we have Phil Rauscher coming over from, reportedly, Phil Rauscher coming from the Minnesota Vikings. Which I'm going to say this first. I don't know a lick about this guy. I'm not going to sit here and try to tell you everything about this dude because I don't. That's just that's just who I am. What I will say from my small research is that the players talk really well of him. And I looked up ESPN's 2021 where is it? 2021 run blocking, pass blocking stats, and the Vikings for team pass block win rate was at 25th at 54%. Run block win rate 13th at 71%. So that shouldn't surprise you. They got Dalvin Cook over there, and they run the ball really well. The Bills know how to, run block effectively. In fact, in this same article, they were 8th in pass blocking, right? But in run blocking, the Bills were 23rd. So hopefully bringing in Phil Rauscher will teach this offensive line how to run block better. While, obviously maintaining their ability to pass block, and players were raving about Phil Rauscher. And what I really am excited about is the fact that this guy, again, like Joe Brady, has a lot of upside. The Bills are taking a chance with someone who's got a high ceiling. That's awesome. Like, I saw some of the reports of other offensive line coaches. There was some guy from the Jaguars, and I was like, oh, that does not sound like someone who I want personally. And I'm trying to think of who else. Yeah, and then it just looked like it was that guy at the moment. I can't find anything else, but still, I would have not I much prefer Phil Rauscher over Ryan Wendell of the Jacksonville Jaguars. So I don't know how you feel about this, if you're having parallel feelings with the Joe Brady hiring and the Phil Rauscher one like I am. But Justin, why don't you tell me how you feel?
So this one I'm a little bit back and forth about, and something you touched on that I was going to bring up is kind of that betting on traits and going after like this new look. And it's another young guy that they're bringing in. He's only 36 years old, spent the last 2 years with the Vikings. And, you bring up the stats with the pass and run blocking win rates. Kind of the exact opposite of what the Bills are right now. So maybe, with what our line already does well, what they need to work on, maybe we meet somewhere in the middle with both. But this is an area for me where it's kind of like, well, what offensive line is he getting to work with? Because kind of like the first 6 games, first half of the year, that offensive line was a train wreck. And, we see some pieces move around. Ryan Bates kind of solidifies a spot at guard. Spencer Brown comes in. Darrell Williams moves. So, beginning of the season, we think we have this starting 5 in mind, and by the end of the year, there's only, Mitch Morrison, Deion Dawkins in their original position. For me, this one will be interesting to see, through free agency, through the draft, what kind of pieces we add in to help. And, was Ryan Bates kind of this flash in the pan, or, is he really legit? And the Bills kind of knew what they had in him, but his positional versatility as a backup was too valuable. So
you just made me remember something that I thought about when I saw that Bobby Johnson left. How is it? So Bobby Johnson, I don't think he did a bad job. I don't think he did an exceptionally well job at the same time, and that's no problem against him. But there are some things on the record that's gonna look kind of off. He sent. It took him. Oh my God, I'm blanking on his name.
Wyatt Teller.
Cleveland. Yeah, things didn't work with him and Wyatt Teller. He couldn't get anything out of him, so the Bills ended up trading him. Wyatt Teller becomes an all-pro, like high-paid guard. In my head, it's just like, I mean, come on, like you couldn't get anything out of all-pro. He was like right there in your lap, and you couldn't extract anything from him. And to respects for the Browns, they have really good offensive line coach. So I'm not gonna like take too much from him, but still, like, bro, you had Wyatt Teller here, and then when you already mentioned this, it took us forever to get Ryan Bates out there at the left guard spot. And there's two things with that, right? The Bills really like depth. So they liked Ryan Bates because he could go at all 5 positions, but it's clear when he got on the field that he was just way better. His high upside was at the guard spot. So for me, it's like, why did it take us that long to do that? And I don't know. For me personally, those are some smudge marks that if I'm controlling the front office and the coaching staff, which I'm not, if I'm looking at that, it's just kind of, I'd be like, well, how did that happen? You're a professional and you had an all-pro and it didn't work out. You couldn't get anything, and this is a sidetrack. You couldn't get anything out of Cody Ford, and it turns out an undrafted free agent that we traded for from the Eagles ends up being the answer this season at left guard. Oh, by the way, Feliciano, your original starting left guard, is on the bench basically ever since he got hurt. You never really saw him back out there. So that's a lot of head scratching, if you ask me. And I do want to apologize because I misspoke earlier. So the Bills were looking at assistant offensive line coach Ryan Wendell. So some guy in-house, and Jacksonville Jaguars George Warhop as the other two candidates. I misspoke. And I want to read this excerpt real quick from Buffalo Rumblings because I think they did a good job, and by Matt Warren, and he does a real good job of kind of summarizing how I feel about this. And Justin, I'll let you kind of flush out your thoughts afterwards, but here's what Matt had to say. Rauscher doesn't have any apparent connections to Buffalo's current coaching staff. He was on the Vikings coaching staff in 2020 and 2021, working for Mike Zimmer. In 2018 and 2019, he was on the Washington coaching staff under Jay Gruden. From 2015 to 2017, he was an entry-level coach for the Denver Broncos with Vance Joseph. This lack of connection was why I didn't include him on the list of potential offensive line coaches. Plus, the Vikings haven't hired a coach yet, so he's still under contract. At age 36, he's an up-and-coming coach. He played from 2003 to 2005 at UCLA before an injury from high school reappeared and he was forced to retire. So, again, short career, but a lot of upside, under the radar kind of person, but my guy. Like I said, I'm excited for this guy if he is coming to Buffalo.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what he puts in there about, he's kind of already got 5-6 years coaching into the league, and he's still a young man. He's only 36 years old. So I think he's kind of been moving up the ranks, and this is, kind of that next step. So somebody that, like we both mentioned, offensive line coaches are kind of hard to know a ton about, but somebody that I'm definitely getting myself excited for. Also, before we wrap up this segment, because we got going on Ryan Bates there, this is my official taking an L on Ryan Bates. We were doing roster projection last year, and
I kept him, right?
I think you kept him, and
yeah,
I remember I was talking about, it's great that he can play all 5 positions and blah, 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 but I'd rather have one guy that can do one position well. And if I had it my way, he would have been cut, and he turned out to be one of the more pleasant surprises on the season. So yeah, I'll take my L on that one.
It's like, how did it take Bobby Johnson? Like, it took injury for us to get that guy out there. Which, I guess was a good thing. Not that people got hurt, but that he got his opportunity to, get out there and showcase his skills, and it ended up working out. And like, to your point, this might be a flash in the pan. So who knows? Only the future will. So let's have our fingers crossed and hope that the Bills finally figured out at least one of the guard spots. Because Darrell Williams' contract is a little ludicrous if he's going to be the starting guard moving forward. But that's for another episode. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
Hey, this is Dick DeGroat, Bill's dad. Now back to the show.
Welcome back, everyone. We're going to wrap up this episode. I am Andrew Chang, and alongside me is my co-host, Justin Goddard. You can find us on most social media and podcasting platforms by searching up the Wandering Buffalo podcast. You can find me by searching up Two Changs, and Justin by searching up JGods22. Welcome back. Justin, we're going to kick the rest of this episode off by doing our 13 reasons to be excited for the Buffalo Bills. Last week, I kicked things off by talking about Brandon Beane, number 1. Reason numero uno. Who do you have at number 2? Because I tasked you, and for the listeners out there, I don't know who Justin picked, so I'm going to hand the mic over to him, and he's just going to take it from there, and I'm just going to respond to it.
So what I'm noticing with this exercise is it's really fun how many reasons that there are to be excited. And, we picked 13, kind of in homage to the last 13 seconds of the game and something to look forward to. But trying to figure out, who I want to talk about and what order should we be doing them. And there's just so many things to be excited about. So I'll start with that. But for this week's episode, I wanted to talk about Mr. Toe Drag Swag himself, my guy, number 13, Gabriel Davis. Just a ton to like about this young man. And, I'll start by saying there's a lot of debate out there of like, is Gabriel Davis ready to be a wide receiver too? We did this last year. Is he ever going to be a true wide receiver too? But I don't personally care what number receiver we give any of these players. I'm just glad he's on my team. And the way Josh Allen moves the ball around and, somebody wants to take away Stephon Diggs in a week, that's fine. Our other guys are going at it. So the designation of what number on the roster he is doesn't really matter to me all that much. So we saw him last year have this booming rookie season, and he looked real intriguing, and he was making big play after big play. And then, we talked about it a lot on this podcast, kind of a quieter, slow start to the season. He had a little bit of injury concerns in there. So he ends the season with 35 receptions on 63 attempts, 549 yards, and 6 touchdowns, which, overall, not crazy eye-popping numbers, but remembering that in the system he is wide receiver 4. But then we have the recency bias and something that I can't get out of my head, and that's those postseason numbers he put up. Right. This guy had 10 receptions on 13 targets, 242 yards, and 5 touchdowns. Now, I know 4 of those touchdowns came in one game, and like 200 yards of it came in one game.
Historic performance. So. Yeah, this historic game. You can't take that away.
Right, exactly. And this is the kind of guy where, depending on what we do, rounding out the receiver group, whether he ends up at 3 or 4, we have some, is McKenzie coming back? Is Beasley coming back? All that stuff is kind of minimized to me a little bit, knowing that up here we got Diggs and down here we got Gabe Davis, and filling in the talent around that, it already starts shaping up to be a really exciting group.
So I love Gabriel Davis, and I'm so happy that you picked him. And we all knew that he was going to be on this list, and I was just kind of wondering when you were going to do it, or if I was going to do it first. But a couple things to unpack there. There are a lot of reasons to be excited for the Buffalo Bills next season. So there's a chance we're probably not going to have a couple people on this list who definitely deserve to be on this list. It's just kind of just how it shook out. And Justin and I aren't talking to each other. We're just kind of going back and forth, ping-ponging. So if he wants someone on this list that I personally don't have on there, we don't have the opportunity to talk about it. So if you have someone on this list that you think should be on there, feel free to reach out to us, comment, let us know who you think should be on this list. I'm more than happy to talk to you about it, and more than likely, you're going to be right. Like, there's no wrong answer to this, in my personal opinion, unless you pick someone super egregious, which I'm not going to name any names. But getting back to Gabriel Davis. Yes, Mr. Inconsistent. But getting back to Gabriel Davis, I thought those stats that you put up really just show how effective he was. Now, you said, and this sounds a little, wrong, because he didn't really have eye-popping stats. But when you extrapolate his stats over the last couple of games, and to your point, to the playoffs and a couple last regular season games, Emmanuel Sanders comes out, Gabriel Davis gets a little more snap count, and you see this man start to produce over and over. And next thing you know, he's getting 2 touchdown games and seeing the ball a lot more. Stephon Diggs, he gives Gabriel Davis gives a lot of praise to Diggs because he has those opportunities because Diggs is Diggs. So I'm very excited what this offense can do, knowing that Gabriel Davis can be a potential number 2 wide receiver. There was a lot of debate in this offseason saying, like, Gabriel Davis does what he can because he's a number 4 wide receiver or 3 or 4 in this offense. Well, now when Emmanuel Sanders went out, you saw Gabriel Davis get those number 2 roles, and it looked like it worked out pretty well. So I'm pretty excited to see what he produces with more opportunities and more snaps under his belt. So I think your choice here for Gabriel Davis is well-deserved for this man. He's a young man, only completed 2 years into his rookie contract. We got 2 more cheap years with him, so that's awesome to know. And another thing is that he was a 4th-round pick, I believe. Mm-hmm. I might be might not be saying that correctly, but that's great value for a 4th-round pick. And he's starting to, come around, and everyone likes to talk about year 3 being the year that big things happen. Well, I already saw that potential in year 2, at the end of year 2. So lots to be excited about with Gabriel Davis, and who knows, maybe we only saw the beginning of his ceiling, and there's more he could fill into.
Yeah, a couple of the other things that I really like about him that, it gets kind of lost when you're just looking at, raw stats. And one of the things being, we'll start with those sideline catches. You don't see a ton of players that can make those grabs. The focus it takes, and it, he's shown that it's not like, oh, this happens once in a while. Like, he's making those plays consistently. And it seems like a lot of the opportunities that he gets are coming in like these big 3rd down situations. Mm-hmm. And he seems to have a really good chemistry with Josh Allen. When the first play breaks down and you're moving through your 2nd, 3rd option, and Josh is rolling to the right, and somebody's got to come back to him and get open. I think when you're just looking at like the numbers, you kind of need that little reminder of like, how some of these plays came to happen. And it's not just, he ran a 12-yard out and Josh hit him with the ball. Like, no, a lot of these plays are, outside of structure and him knowing where he has to get to be for Josh Allen to find him with the ball. And that's kind of leading to these, 3rd and 7, and all of a sudden you got this 25-yard reception to Davis on the sideline where either he was going to catch it or nobody was going to.
Right. I don't really have more to add to that. Gabriel Davis, you're kind of being the man right now. So high expectations for this guy going into the year 3 and the next season. So other than that, I think that's going to wrap it up for today's episode. Thanks for sticking around if you did. If you have someone you want to list down in your 13 reasons why, or if you disagree or agree with us, feel free to, leave a comment, like, or review our podcast, and I'd be gladly, Justin and I would be gladly to have that conversation with you. We love having good conversations with, just Bills fans in general. After all, we are just an average Joe, so we don't claim to be experts, and we definitely don't want to be experts, because then we're, I think that'd be a little hard to have conversations with normal folk like us, at least for me. So anyways, as always, you can find us on most social media and podcasting platforms, even on YouTube by searching up the Wandering Buffalo Podcast. Justin, where can the people find you?
You can find me on any social media at jgods22.
And you can find me on most social media accounts by searching up Two Changs. That's going to do it for today's episode. Thanks for listening, and until next week.
Go Bills.
Go Bills.